Welcome, everyone, and happy Earth Day. Thanks for joining us for today's program on sustainability in healthcare. My name is Stephen Collins. I'm the CEO of Matter. We are a healthcare technology incubator and innovation hub built on a belief that collaboration between entrepreneurs and industry leaders is the absolute best way to develop healthcare solutions. Today's program is, as the title suggests, all about sustainability in healthcare. In addition to being an enormous part of the economy, the healthcare industry itself is a big consumer of resources, and life sciences companies and healthcare providers alike have fairly substantial environmental footprints. Hospitals themselves are the second most energy intensive commercial buildings in the United States after food service facilities. Pharmaceutical companies are notorious consumers of water as well as other resources. And we've seen a number of the largest companies announce ambitious programs recently to reduce their environmental footprints. Just one data point, Novo Nordisk, who we'll hear from later in this program, and a company that essentially invented insulin, produces 500 million insulin injector pens each year, which both save people's lives and end up in landfills. We'll start today's program with a presentation from Frederik van Deurs, who is the CEO of Green Innovation Group, which is a Danish company that works with municipalities and large companies on their sustainability efforts. GIG, as it's known, and Matter have just released a white paper called The Business Case for a Circular MedTech Sector that Frederik will talk about. Following Frederik's keynote, we will feature two case studies. The first will look at how Novo Nordisk is working with Genecis on an innovative approach to reducing their environmental footprint. And the second will look at Sodexo's commitment to sustainability and why it's a core area of focus for them. So Frederik, I see you there, and take it away.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you for the kind words and the introduction. It's been a great pleasure working with Matter and Novo Nordisk on the Novo Nordisk Innovation Challenge, which was the first time the two of us met each other. I couldn't help notice that you have the "Don't Panic" sign from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in the background, so I remember to bring a towel. Then I guess it can't go that wrong, but. I'll get started with you guys. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Frederik van Deurs. I'm the CEO of Green Innovation Group. Stephen introduced me quite properly, so I'm not gonna dwell much more into that. But we released this white paper together with Matter, actually, that helped develop it, called The Business Case for a Circular MedTech Sector. And this, of course, is a really dear topic of mine. We in Green Innovation Group only work with projects that we believe are going to take us closer to drawdown. And that's the point in time where we take more greenhouse gas out of the atmosphere than we put into it. And that's absolutely crucial that we get there. So this is what you'll know in 15 minutes. You're going to know how urgent the action is needed from major corporates. You're going to know that the market is actually currently demanding a wide range of solutions addressing sustainability and circular economy. And you're also getting the cheat sheet, strategies and tactics for deployment. So if it seems a bit rushed, it's because I have a lot on heart. So I'll try not to speed talk too much. We are in Green Innovation Group working with market leaders that has shown us that changing for green business is actually possible, and it can be quite profitable. What we have also seen in recent times is that greenhouse gas emissions have risen to unprecedented levels, and this is quite a catastrophe that we can expect to hit us if we do not change our course of action. So reaching drawdown is the single most important mission in the history of mankind. And as you can tell from the current trajectory, we're not really on track. So we need to change a lot of things to get there. And here's why. If we have a global temperature rise of 2 degrees Celsius by the year 2100, then shellfish will be unable to actually form their shells in the ocean, and that's just one of many dire consequences that it will have for the environment. And I'm sorry for the Americans there, I can't translate 2 degrees Celsius into Fahrenheit, but I'm sure you're quite aware of these numbers yourself. But on top of that, the water deficit will double. And that just means that everywhere where we're currently needing freshwater reserves, we'll be missing them double the amount of time. And this will lead to changed migration patterns. It will probably lead to a lot of refugees. It will also lead to conflicts over resources to a much higher degree than what we're seeing today. So there's a lot of reasons why we wouldn't want to go there. But there's another part of the climate change situation that is often overlooked, and that is that in only 50 years we've killed 67% of all known species. That's not very good. It's a good performance if you're playing a computer game that was all about extinction, but that's not what we're doing here. We're actually trying to build a habitat for us to live for thousands of years longer. So Denmark has been celebrated as the greenest country in the world. So we can give ourselves a round of applause right there. The problem, however, is that when we're looking at the 25 biggest listed Danish companies, if they succeed in their sustainability goals, we are on the path to a 3 Celsius degree temperature rise. That is if they succeed with all of the very ambitious targets that have been set out there. And you remember that I told you about the 2 degree temperature path. That didn't look too good, right? So we're trying to stay at 1.5 degrees Celsius. So this shows us that we need to be way more ambitious in the way we address sustainability. So we need to massively invest in the green transition to avoid this scenario. In Green Innovation Group, we have identified the different areas with the biggest impact potential within known technologies. And this is a work that we did for the Danish fund, for the Danish Green Future Fund, which is a 3 billion euro fund to invest in the green transition. And of course, this means that we have basically been looking through every conceivable technology and paired that with the data from the UN and the IPCC and figured out where do we have investment opportunities that also promise the greenhouse gas emission reductions. So the large environmental impact of the healthcare sector is quite often overlooked, and it was nice to hear Stephen introduce a few of the numbers. But the healthcare sector is actually 13% more greenhouse gas emission intensive than the automotive industry. I bet that not a lot of you knew that before going here. So that was one thing. The pollution is caused from various sources, of course, but it's environmental pollution, it's non-renewable materials, and it's the general waste and the medicinal hazardous waste. Those are the main polluters. But the collaboration of authorities and industry is, of course, the key factors in accelerating the green transition in the medtech sector, and it needs to be encouraged. So what we can see as possible plausible solutions is that we need new sustainable standards and regulations. The EU just came out with the new Green Deal worth 260 billion euro per year. We need more in incentives and increased funding for sustainability and for sustainability practices as well. Quite often it's good business, but the transition cost and the switching cost is quite high. Then we need optimization of IP systems. So we don't have an IP system where intellectual property is actually competing against the mutual interest of us that are living on the planet, but so that it's enhancing the experience of all of us. There's a few things to do there. I won't go too deep into that. If you're interested in IP, I suggest that you reach out to Ava, who was also a partner in making this white paper happen. And then last but not least, we have, of course, education in the industry. When we're looking at digital and IT health, those are the biggest circular opportunities. And it's expected that after the COVID-19 pandemic, it's expected to reach 511 billion US by 2027. And this, of course, also goes to show that if we can make more care and more treatment digital, we are saving and shaving off a whole bunch of resources. For the average clinical trial in the US, a patient is traveling more than 100 miles just for a visit that might as well have been conducted via Zoom, to just see a doctor and have a brief interview. So there's a lot of potential here, and as you see the top factors, we have high return on IT investments in health tech or healthcare. We have increasing awareness on the value of digital health. We have a shift towards a value-based care or patient-centric care as well. We have rising use of big data in healthcare management, and we have rising incidences of chronic diseases. So that was the first part. Now we'll move into the second part. The market is currently demanding a wide range of solutions. And this is, of course, really exciting because, as all economics have told us and taught us, supply and demand need to be in some kind of symbiosis for it to actually work and for the market forces to come into effect. So we are already seeing demand for reusable surgical textiles, recyclable equipment and electronics, sustainable packaging, improved recycling systems, and efficient production. And here we have seen players like Novo Nordisk and Sodexo going out and pushing demand in the market, and also for Novo Nordisk putting a demand for their suppliers and sub-suppliers to actually improve on sustainability metrics and on delivering sustainability. So we are seeing the demand in the market, and it's coming on quite strong. And the market opportunity is, of course, defined by cutting costs while preventing harm to the environment. So this is also a very interesting dynamic that quite often in the circular economy, you're actually making things cheaper without compromising the value for the end user. And if we're looking at the refurbished pharma equipment market, that's expected to hit 12 billion by the year 2021. This data is actually from before the pandemic, where it seems like, at least in the beginning, refurbishment, pharma equipment, etc., didn't quite have the same popularity as single-use devices and protective gear and gloves and masks, etc. had. So we're looking at high material production costs, relatively small refurbishment costs, increased recycling of pharma products through reprocessing, and less amount of waste ending up in landfill. And that's basically the process that we're looking towards making more efficient. So the main drivers for green chemistry in pharma are actually cost savings, regulation, and reputation, which is interesting because I went to this survey. So basically here, C-level people from major pharmaceutical companies are being interviewed, which drivers are incentivizing them to go towards green chemistry. And I had expected a much larger focus from customer demand, but it's actually not the main driver. Cost savings and regulation are the main drivers, and then reputation as the third. But now we come to the juicy part, the strategies and tactics for deployment. I've been looking forward to sharing this with you. So if you want to do something, as they say, great artists steal. Copy the tactics of the industry leaders. They have already been out there breaking the ice, and now it's actually clear for others to sail through. So I'm going to share a few tactics and strategies. We have the Danish window manufacturer Velux. They have committed to a lifetime carbon neutrality by the year 2041. Only scope 1 and 2, not scope 3. But this is a whole new way of going beyond carbon neutral to date, but going lifetime carbon neutral. Of course, this also poses the problem that for Velux to actually have a huge effect, they need everybody else to do the same thing for it to be more or less effective. But what I find really inspiring is that from the year 2041, Velux will be actively committing and contributing to reaching drawdown. Their business will actively be a part of the solution rather than a part of the problem. And that, of course, is something we should take inspiration from. They did it in partnership with WWF. Then we have Philips. I'm sure you're all familiar with Philips. They're targeting 25% of sales from circular economic products and services by the year 2025. So, and last thing I heard, they were actually on track with this. This is a way of making it directly related to the business. And this is one of the main paradigm shifts that we need to make in this decade. It's the idea that sustainability equals philanthropy. Sustainability is good business. It has to be good business. If it's not good business, it's not sustainable, because then it's relying on philanthropy, which is just not a way of running things. So we need to look at the major drivers for change. And in the past couple of 100 years, business has been one of the main contributors here. So of course, regulation also plays a part, but we also need to look at this as a business opportunity. Pardon. So last but not least, I want to share the strategy of Patagonia. They have been pushing the limits of commercial agriculture for quite a while. So they started off by demanding all of their cotton suppliers to go for organic cotton. Then they learned that organic cotton is actually depleting topsoil. So topsoil is basically the humus in which you can grow crops. But by doing organic cotton practices, they were depleting the topsoil. So the soil became less and less rich, you could say. Now Patagonia is only investing in cotton that is regenerative, that is building topsoil. And of course is organic on top of that. And that means that the regenerative agricultural practices have actually gotten a foothold now in the market, and as a business case to look to. This is one of the biggest potentials for doing carbon capture and carbon storage, but also doing regenerative business. So super inspiring case. You can read much more about it on their website. And then of course we have Novo Nordisk. They're showing the way with the Circular for Zero strategy. It's one that's really close to me because we worked so much on the Novo Nordisk Innovation Challenge. But you'll hear more about that later. And what they're doing, of course, is switching to renewable electricity. I think that was one of the low-hanging fruits, but also a bold statement. So, you know, there's no reason to think twice about what's the first thing we should do. If you're considering a switch to more sustainable practices, switch to green energy. That's a good start. Then you can do the more hardcore things like designing eco-friendly circular products. I know this is a behemoth of a task, but I've also seen the folks working on it, and that always leaves me quite inspired. And then of course you need to work with suppliers that share the same mindset. That's absolutely key. So in the 6-month Novo Nordisk Innovation Challenge, it led to innovation pilots, and the demand for suppliers to be green is also showing its impact. When we deliver something to Novo Nordisk, we have to prove that we only use green electricity, for instance. We also did a 3-week sprint with facility management in Novo Nordisk, where after 3 weeks, we actually had back of the napkin business cases for places where they could spend the same amount of money, get the same quality, and reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So that was a great compass to figure out, is this a good facility management investment or not? Without compromising the business, but actually looking at the business case every time. And I think that is it. My 15 minutes are up at least. So adapting the business strategy, that's essential for achieving the green transition of the medtech sector. And I think that's all I had. I hope the next one is, no, it's not. Okay, there we go.
Frederik.
So that's all from me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspective and for the important work that GIG is doing, and most especially for the reference you made at the top of your presentation to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It has been fantastic partnering with you, and we look forward to continuing to work together as we help healthcare and life sciences companies achieve their environmental goals.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And thank you so much for having me here, Stephen. I look forward to the next collabs.
Ditto. Next up, we're going to dig into an example of how one of the world's leading life sciences companies is partnering with a biotech startup to reduce their environmental footprint. Kenneth Strømdahl is the Senior Vice President of Devices and Delivery Solutions at Novo Nordisk. We at Matter have had a truly wonderful partnership with Novo Nordisk for the past several years. And last year, Matter, and as Frederik mentioned, Matter and Green Innovation Group ran a global innovation challenge to help Kenneth and his team find innovative solutions to help Novo Nordisk achieve their ambitious environmental goals, as well as prepare those entrepreneurs to work with the company. The winner of that competition was Genecis Bioindustries, which is an organic waste processing startup that uses biotechnology to convert waste into biodegradable plastics and other high-value materials. Genesis CEO Luna Yu and Genesis Growth and Partnerships lead Robert Selleck will join the conversation now. So Kenneth, I'll kick things off with you and ask you just to explain Novo Nordisk's Circular for Zero ambition and the origin of this business goal, and maybe a bit on how's it going, and how did that lead to the 2020 Innovation Challenge?
Yeah, thank you very much for this nice introduction, Stephen, and also thank you to Frederik already for mentioning a few of the activities that we have carried out together in recent years. In Novo Nordisk, we have this Circular for Zero strategy, and the reason being that we would very much like to drive our entire company as a sustainable business. It's important for us that we leave the earth behind us in an even better way than we actually did start consuming of all the resources and whatnot. So we did decide on this Circular for Zero strategy a few years ago, and it is a corporate-wide strategy. So it's not something which just belongs to headquarters or to specific areas. Often we tend to talk about manufacturing as a starting point, because that's where they, of course, are spending lots of energy, they consume lots of resources and so forth. But we are a corporation of 45,000 employees across the globe, and we actually have a strategy now in place which addresses multiple challenges across the entire value chain. So this does apply for all individual affiliates, as it does for all our plants, as it does for R&D and sales force, etc. So if we are to boil it down to a few things, it is about the resources that we use, it is about the CO2 emissions, and it is about the waste. And how to convert this into more meaningful actions, we have decided to consider when it comes to the resources, how can we drive a circular supply of our resources. We would also, when it comes to CO2 emissions, how can we actually drive a circular company? And when it comes to waste, how can we actually design circular products for the future? So those are the three important pillars for us to cascade this strategy down the organization. And of course, there are numerous examples of what they do in the different parts of the organization. Now I'm speaking on behalf on part of the R&D organization, because as the head of the Devices and Delivery Solutions organization, we are the ones who are, among other things, inventing new pen injectors for our insulin-requiring chronic patients, but also for other therapies. All of those pens has, for good reasons, being designed to be as convenient as possible. And now the majority is just made out of plastic, and they are supposed to be disposable products. So to make this very concrete, this is a challenge that we have, because we know that the majority of all of these, they end up in landfills, as you also just mentioned. And of course, next to this challenge, we also have all the energy consumption. And that's also where Frederik, you already mentioned that we have changed into what we consider is fully renewable energy sources, not just in headquarters, but actually across all our manufacturing plants now in the company. At the same time, there are a long list of initiatives in each and every affiliate also to change their car fleet into more green cars, etc., etc. But again, back to the concrete challenge now in my part of the organization. We all know that we have these pens. We distribute them every day to our patients. We are talking about, as you mentioned at the beginning, more than 500 million pens a year. We don't see any decreasing demand. We are just looking into a future of an increasing demand. And we have just also realized that, you know, there are not just one single initiative which can solve the problem. So that's why we actually also did initiate the innovation challenge, because we have a number of different challenges. One, first of all, being about the entire resource consumption. Where do we get the resources from? Can we get the resources for all of this from more sustainable resources? But what we consider among the biggest challenge, that is, how can we get those pens back? How can we get these resources being spent? How can we put them into a circular kind of machine where we can reuse it? Because even though you use a pen and you throw it away, it's not in any way worn out. We could easily recycle the material into new products. But the challenge being that in many countries they end up in landfills today. We have initiated, to be very concrete, now a pilot running in Denmark. It is already planning to be initiated in a number of other countries in Europe, where we would like to establish a take-back program. So we are actually urging our patients to return their used pens at the nearest pharmacy. So we have now made contracts with a number of pharmacies in Denmark, and we have informed them, trained them. They are informing all the patients that they are actually supposed to, and they urge patients to return their used pens. And then, of course, we ensure that the logistics systems and that all the supply chain and whatnot is established behind this. But this is just one initiative to return all the pens. Then we can ensure that they're being disassembled in the right place, that we can, you know, disassemble different fractions, because we have plastic. We of course also have cartridges which sits inside with potential medicine residues and so forth. Then at the same time, we're also considering how can we develop more sustainable and we develop and design future devices for circularity. What are the types of materials being used here? Can we use more environmentally friendly types of plastic? Can we make them more coherent, more homogeneous in terms of choice of plastic to make it easier in a recycling process? So that's another initiative that we are looking into. But this is where we are actually lacking some basic research, because we do not have readily available sustainable or even better biodegradable plastics available. It's not where we are yet as an industry, and of course, due to the inherent requirements in terms of accuracy and so forth in the pharmaceutical sector, we of course also need to ensure what we deliver in the hands of the patients are of course reliable products. That actually led us to this innovation challenge, because we actually just realized, you know, even though we are so-called what we consider a big company, we are not the ones getting all the bright ideas across the globe. So why not reach out to the broader society and try to ask for, you know, solutions and potential help to solve and to overcome these challenges? And that's why we reached out to Frederik from the Green Innovation Group, and also you, Stephen, in Matter, to help us set up and initiate this innovation challenge. And that actually all of a sudden, you know, exposed us to lots of other companies, the majority being smaller startup companies, but that's also where we often see all the bright ideas for the future. And I think that actually served as a very expanded source of ideas to our organization. And that's where we were running this competition. We ended up with 5 finalists out of about 100 applicants from more than 20 countries. And that's where Genecis were the one with the most convincing and promising idea for the future in terms of sustainability. This was one among lots of interesting, of course, ideas and so forth, but this was one that we at least deemed had the highest and the biggest potential. It is also a tough challenge, I know, but of course, with a tough challenge also comes a potential high reward later on. So that led us into this collaboration with Genecis.
Well, thanks, Kenneth. And it's just the complexity of trying to achieve your circular for zero ambition is, I mean, it's really mind-boggling. And you know, you were the first, or one of the first large pharmaceutical life sciences companies that I saw announce something like that. And it's really, it's going to be an incredible journey over the next decade. So Luna and Robert, speaking of Genecis and bright ideas, so you know, you work across multiple industries. Your company isn't just focused on life sciences. And how are you finding that so far? And what made this innovation opportunity with Novo Nordisk particularly interesting to you to pursue?
Great question, Stephen. It's a really good pleasure to be here today. Appreciate the opportunity. So for us, it was actually quite a funny story of how we initially learned the challenge from Novo Nordisk. I remember it was around November 2019. We actually got a call from a contact from our long-term partner Sodexo, Catherine Power, VP of Communications at the Healthcare Division. She actually bumped into Kenneth's team at an event in Chicago back in November, where they spoke about the competition. And right away, she said, you know, Genecis may actually be a really good fit. And the next day after the phone call, she made an introduction for us to meet the Novo Nordisk team. So we booked a call with Andre and Jesper from the Novo technical team. And after that one single call, we at Genecis were convinced that Novo was a partner that we've been looking for all this time. So we sent in the application and the rest was history. And the reason why we were so interested in this field in the first place is because the biomedical applications of PHAs, which is the bioplastic that we're making, was something that we always knew was very much possible, but we didn't think that the market was ready for it so early on. But from that one single hour call with Andre and Jesper, it became super clear for us that Novo Nordisk knew exactly what they wanted, they knew when they would want it, and they understood what it would take to actually get there from a long-term perspective. And personally, I was also shocked by the amount of knowledge that the Novo team already had in the plastic space. It really demonstrated the solid steps that Novo has already taken in this direction. And overall, that was super different for us. As sustainability topics, as I mentioned earlier, the topics became garnered a lot more traction in the last couple of years recently. Most organizations that we came across, especially ones that are established as Novo, are starting to do a great job in terms of awareness and talking the talk. But very few companies that we've seen already took the action in terms of walking the walk, especially back in 2019. So although for us, it was a strategic interest from the very beginning, it really became the dedication and the commitment that we witnessed in Novo that really won us over and made us want to give it 150% to make this work.
I love your story of how it all started. I think that was the kickoff event for the Innovation Challenge, where we had, there was a team from Sodexo there, as well as a team obviously from Novo Nordisk, and as the rest is history, as they say. So how's it going? So, you know, you went through the program, obviously you won, congratulations. You connected with Novo Nordisk now, and how is it, how's it going?
Yeah, I guess I can take a jump in there. So essentially, at every step of the challenge, we've always made it a top priority to be both open-minded and give our best effort. And our approach was purposefully collaborating with a number of different internal stakeholders to identify problems that permeate the whole company, as well as the R&D aspect. And we were able to come up with like a really amazing solution that went well beyond just the plastics problem. We realized that not only can we replace plastic packaging, but look at the more holistic approach to circular for zero. So what we determined is we can actually use our technology to upcycle organic waste from Novo Nordisk's production facilities into these biopolymers that can be used throughout the business. And this is really an opportunity to contribute to zero environmental impact by 2030. That was the core message of the challenge. How do we get to zero environmental impact by 2030? And after all of that collaboration through the challenge, we were lucky enough to win and secure that pilot collaboration. And over the past few months, our technical team has been working immensely hard, as I mentioned, and the results so far are extremely promising. And as Frederik previously mentioned, we've simultaneously developed a strong business case for why this makes sense for both Genecis and Novo Nordisk. And this pilot was really just our first step in a long-term journey together.
That business case that you just mentioned, that Frederik mentioned, and I believe that underpins, Kenneth, the ambition for Novo Nordisk is one of the things that I find particularly interesting and encouraging. I don't think, and Kenneth, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Novo Nordisk's Circular for Zero ambition is entirely a philanthropic gesture to the world. I think that underneath it, there's a real business case for it, which is why it's a priority across so many parts of the complex organization.
Yes, for sure. We don't consider this as philanthropy, because that is actually not sustainable. We need to build this into the business, and we need to find ways how we can make that part of our business. And I think this is just one example of a solution that seems to turn out to be a pretty good business. I think what you all can imagine, this was really above and beyond what anyone did expect from such an innovation challenge, because we were seeking different solutions here. But this was not just about coming up with a more environmentally friendly bioplastic solution. It was also based on using our own waste streams from some of our API plants. I think that was a major surprise. So we actually came one step closer to this circularity, or this circle about how we can reuse and existing waste streams into potential new products. But of course, it comes with some challenges. But I think that was a clear sign of a winner for the future here. But as you alluded to on the business side, we have had different strategies over the years, and we also did focus on environment years ago, but absolutely not to the same extent as we do today, and likewise on social responsibility. But we do always consider and think through how we can embed this into the business, because we'll never ever just getting grants in every department and every affiliate just to do some green stuff or greenwashing. We need to think this into the business and turn the business and the green business into a sustainable business. I think that's important for us, and the past history shows that can be made.
Any advice for entrepreneurs who are listening and who are looking at this relationship that Kenneth you've built building with Genecis? Any advice for others who are interested in helping Novo Nordisk, but also
Yeah, I think it's important that you are active and that reach out, because you cannot necessarily expect that all companies are running innovation challenges, and even if they do, you do not know whether or not the scope really fits your purpose and your product. So I think people should not hesitate from reaching out. In our case, people can easily find out that we have a central environmental department sitting in Novo Nordisk, shaping the overall environmental and Circular for Zero strategy across the value chain. That's of course one anchor, and then they of course know the organization and can reach out to the right ones. I think that's at least how I see things are panning out in our company. So my urge is that you are proactive and just reach out. You should not take a no for a no. And actually pick up the phone and call the reception and getting through to the right ones, instead of just trying to send a nice and polite email, which I'm afraid will end up somewhere.
worst that happens is somebody says no, right?
Yeah.
Luna or Robert, any key learnings being several months now into the relationship with Novo Nordisk? Any key learnings, advice for entrepreneurs as they're working with companies in similar ways that you are?
Yeah, I can take a stab at this. So obviously a lot of this current change is driven by these ambitious internal ESG targets. But if we take it from a broader perspective, one thing I really recognized when visiting Denmark is that this is also really employee driven. Employees are looking to work somewhere that maximizes societal good, but then minimizes environmental impact. And that was extremely clear when we were visiting Novo Nordisk in Denmark. And I think the pandemic has also been a wake-up call, at least from a visual perspective, of the amount of plastic that's used in the healthcare space. And it's clear that this widespread awareness is basically permeating the globe and is becoming really an accelerant for new ways of thinking and new solutions that can help solve problems. Some advice I would give to startups looking to engage in this space is, again, take a similar approach to what we did, is speak with lots of different stakeholders and really understand the root of the problem at hand, and even the bigger picture, like what are other problems in the organization and how can you create a solution for the company that's really, really custom. And it's so important to find internal champions such as Kenneth. These are the stakeholders that will really bring your solution to the forefront and allow you to succeed. You need that traction internally for something to really blossom into something special. And it's so important to leverage each other's strengths, especially when you're tackling these complex problems, and take a long-term mindset, right? These breakthrough innovations can't just happen overnight. If they could, they would already probably be in place. So what is really important is that we have a long-term trajectory and vision, such as the Circular for Zero by 2030. And if we start now, we can have immense impact in the future, but it really takes that initial effort. And so far our partnership's been really amazing. So again, as Kenneth mentioned, try and get your foot in the door, try and find the right people, try and understand the problem at hand, and then figure out a solution that works for everyone.
Well, Robert, Luna, and Kenneth, thank you so much for your insights. Best of luck with your ongoing partnership. The work that you're doing together is just so important, and we look forward to seeing how it progresses.
Thank you so
Stephen.
much.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have a presentation from Jessica Synkoski, who is the Vice President of Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility for Sodexo Healthcare. Jessica leads Sodexo's North American CSR strategy, which is called Better Tomorrow 2025. And she's a sustainability practitioner by trade with experience across a number of industries. Sodexo, for those of you who aren't intimately familiar with, is an enormous company that operates almost everything in a healthcare setting other than patient care. So Jessica will discuss the company's approach to sustainability and the impact on both health and the environment. So Jessica, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Stephen, and thank you to the other presenters. It was great to see that Sodexo had a small role to play in the circular solutions that were developed. Well, happy Earth Day, everyone. It's a great day to reflect on these promising innovations that are really being developed across all industries in support of our planet. If we could go to the next slide, please. So as was mentioned, our approach to sustainability and corporate social responsibility, we call it the Better Tomorrow 2025 roadmap. And we are looking, ultimately to really leverage the work of our more than 400,000 employees to help make things better, safer, healthier for the 100 million consumers around the world that we touch. And our support for health and well-being and the planet are written into our company's mission, so it really is at the heart of what we do. And within the healthcare segment specifically, our services span everything from cleaning to infection prevention, equipment management, facilities management, patient transport, supply delivery, and nutrition through the kitchens for patients, for staff, and families. And so it's a great to be a part of this discussion today and work, continue the work that we've been doing in this space. Next slide, please. So this is a glance at our 9 commitments and global objectives that we have on our roadmap. And we look really across 3 pillars and ways that we can benefit individuals, communities, and the environment. And today I'm going to be focusing on that 3rd pillar of the environment, but in the recognition that that the environment is a social determinant of health, and that human health and planetary health are clearly linked, as we've been discussing today. And so it'll be great to take a look at some of the case studies that we have that really show benefits at the intersection of both of those spaces. Next slide, please. One of our main passions is around preventing waste and improving food access. We aim to tackle waste overall, especially food waste. As you may have heard, 40% of food in the US is wasted, and in the background, 1 in 7 Americans face food insecurity on a daily basis. And so it is something that, that solutions will be far-reaching. And the ways that we're looking to get there are really in the areas of recovering surplus food. That means taking it from our kitchens to those in need where possible. Even reducing single-use plastics. We have a great initiative that has begun in Europe and is spreading across various countries as well. And then implementing Waste Watch powered by Lean Path. So I'll talk a bit about that as the case study on the next slide. We move to the next slide, please. So when we look at Waste Watch powered by Lean Path, we brought this solution to a health system that has 10 locations in the US. This is just one of many examples of where this program is in place. It's really at hundreds of kitchens, client kitchens across the US currently. So this system is a way to weigh and track various types of food waste by volume. And this is food waste that happens in the kitchens, not the waste that consumers might dump when they're done with their meal, but actually in the kitchens. And this solution really empowers staff with best practices to help adjust their operations and decrease waste. When they can really see on a transaction by transaction basis what their impact is, it really helps to motivate that change. And some of the benefits include reducing carbon footprint, of course, reducing food waste, and also financial savings, which ties back into that thought of this being that the solutions are sustainable, not just nice to have. And from Sodexo's perspective, we help to enable the adjustment of menus, really fine-tuning production levels, modifying procurement, what we need to bring in and what we don't, and also empowering the team members to have really mission-driven components of their jobs. So the results for this particular case, we looked at 3 hospitals across a year, and we saw a 48% drop in food waste volume, 45% drop in food waste weight, and more than 50% drop in the food waste value, which was over $100,000. So you can imagine the multiple benefits that have come out of this program. And overall, we estimate that approximately 50% reduction in food waste can be achieved by using this system across various sites. Next slide, please. So we also have a few cases about educating on and promoting plant-based eating. Plant-based eating, as you know, can be healthier, and it's also better for the environment. So there are lots of crossover benefits to implementing a more plant-forward menu. Next slide, please. So as one case several years ago at a health system in New Jersey, we introduced a blended burger. This burger is called the Natural, and it includes a blend of ground beef, but also mushroom, in an effort to reduce the amount of beef that's used, which helps to reduce the carbon emissions impact, of course, but also introduces a more plant-forward option for consumers, while maintaining the taste factor, which is a key component to the behaviors of switching to more plant-based eating. And our chefs were really challenged to maintain that taste factor and the cultural preferences, but also improving that nutritional quality. And so in order to make this a success, it wasn't just to put the item on the menu and hope that people were going to select it, but we hosted launch parties across the site with tastings, educational presentations for both the chefs, but also for the consumer, so that they could see what the benefits of making this option might be. And this resulted in about a third of an increase in the meat that purchased, which was antibiotic-free, after just 2 fiscal quarters. So we saw this as a very rapid success for adoption of of a plant-based option. So really saw some early gains. And if you take a look at the green box across all Sodexo clients in 2018, which is when we conducted this particular study, we created over 200 new plant-based recipes, which helps with that variety, the options that different clients are looking for. And in addition to that, we joined forces with the Humane Society to help to train our chefs on the plant-based culinary cuisine. So how to prepare, what ways would be enticing for the consumers to actually want to make those options. We've also done studies in reference to how to name those items on the menu, again, and to look at those behavior aspects of what will make a consumer actually want to select that item from the menu. So trying to take a holistic view at how we are promoting plant-forward eating. And within that year, we served nearly 1 million of the Natural blended burgers, which was a quick success that we saw. Next slide, please. So at a medical university in South Carolina, we instituted an urban farm. So you may have heard of community-based farms, and this was a great option for this medical university, where they were able to not only use the produce that was grown on the farm within their own kitchens, but they used it as a community gathering place. And that's really where we see a lot of the benefits that can go beyond just the immediate nutritional benefits from the farm, but even pushing into that preventative space, which is so important for healthcare. The patients in the community were learning about sustainable food production and the health benefits, of course, of fresh produce, also local produce, which again helps to reduce that carbon footprint. And it also creates social connections as their community members are working side by side with the medical university staff and students. They used it as a way to educate and nurture children and adolescents with severe behavior disorders. So they had a day treatment for children who were in psychiatric rehab, and they used this space to help with part of that treatment. It was also used for diabetic children who had type 1 diabetes, again, for that educational component. And it also provides activity and education for patients who are being treated for weight management. So as you can imagine, the benefits of this type of program are quite wide-reaching, from patient wellness, promoting plant-forward diets, community engagement, and even diversity and inclusion. And at Sodexo, we help to share our expertise in culinary arts and nutrition. And we also, we have thousands of registered dietitians who are on our staff. And so that type of expertise is very beneficial in this type of environment. We supported cooking demonstrations and educational events, and the chefs, of course, used the produce directly in the cafeterias where they were serving the food. So the early results were that we had more than 1,500 lunch and learns, farm tours, and cooking demonstrations. We donated thousands of pounds of food, of produce, to local food pantries. And we also diverted more than 11,000 pounds of food waste, which we turned into compost to use directly on that community farm. So just a creative approach to what can be possible when working with your partners and looking at really holistic approaches. Next slide, please. So these were just a few examples and case studies of what's possible, and the solutions are really unique partnerships that we can create as a service provider in the healthcare system. We have a number of other initiatives that we look towards as well. RE100, you may have recently seen that we have committed to RE100 to reduce our own carbon emissions by going 100% renewable energy by 2025. We also have a program called Mindful, which is an entire menu of healthy foods and foods focused on well-being. So just various options that we have as a service provider, just to give you kind of a flavor of how we work. And we're of course very proud to be recognized for the impact of those individual programs and cases, but also on our larger processes towards our CSR goals. Next slide, please. So just to close, I want to thank you for your time, and please feel free to reach out if you have any sustainability inquiries. But you also may be quite interested in that first bullet there. If you are an entrepreneur, we are always looking for partnership ideas, and you can contact Sodexo Ventures through that site that's listed there if you are interested in pitching an idea or seeing how your innovations might align with some of the things that we're looking for. Thank you.
Jessica, thank you so much for sharing and for the work that you're doing and for joining us today. Thank you to all of our presenters who've joined us, and thanks to all of you who joined us on this Earth Day. If you're interested in learning more about some of the topics today, you can check out the white paper, which we just published with Green Innovation Group on circularity, which is on our site under matter.health/stories. With that, have a terrific Earth Day to all of you.